Okay, this is a UI meeting for June 22nd, 2016. All right, so just jump on. Actually, does anybody else have anything they just want to bring up right off the bat? Questions, concerns, comments? Okay. Let's just jump into the team discussions then. Unless we want to do the show and tell right off the bat.
I'm not sure that we're quite ready for show and tell.
Okay.
This week. Let's plan on doing that next time.
No rush. I know we just introduced it anyway. So. Okay, so using this in Jasmine.
Yeah, so essentially what we do now is we declare a bunch of variables at the top of the test, and then in our before eaches,
Lily,
it blocks and everything. We end up defining those variables kind of along the way. Looks like Jasmine offers a context that is cleaned or refreshed at every test iteration. So we can actually expose a lot of this stuff directly to this instead of having these kind of semi-global variables floating around. And then within the tests, the this really refers to the test instance, which is kind of nice. It definitely reduces a lot of boilerplate in the tests. The only gotcha that I've run into so far is that the module function that Angular provides, that's generally done in a before each to provide mocks or something like that, seems to have its own context and destroys it. So you end up kind of doing a little bit of a handoff for your mocks before you can do anything with $provide within a module callback. But I mean, it's a fairly easy workaround, and it's kind of a small. It adds a couple extra lines of code, but the amount of lines that we reduce by assigning to this is significant, and really helps to also define scoping a little bit better. So, you know, if you declare var within it, it's pretty easy to see that that variable really only is dependent on, you know, within that test. It's only it's much easier to kind of see the scoping right away. So something that I think a couple people have already started using. Feedback seems to be good. So I think we should keep doing it. I don't know if we want to add this to a best practice, or if there are any other concerns that might come up using this approach.
I think where it reduces the boilerplate, I think it looks really, so makes the test look a whole lot more legible. Just put it in the best practice. And my only question would be, when do we refactor the tests out there? Is it just if we touch the file, that's when we refactor it?
Yeah, I mean that seems to be the way we've gone about things in the past. I mean it's relatively non-invasive when we're writing new tests. We just end up writing type less characters this way. Certainly easy to overload this. Not everything has to be on every test instance, but yeah, I would say if it seems simple enough. I mean, there are some test files that are many hundreds of lines long. So even doing a refactor when you go in and touch a little bit is may not always be prudent, but certainly you can use this alongside the existing instances. So if you're adding to a test, you know, it is possible to use this pattern. But yeah, I would say if you're in the file already and it makes sense to go ahead and do it, then go ahead and do it. I'm not sure we need a specific tech debt to burn through all of the code, just refactor everything.
Yeah. I only asked to specify because, like, if I'm in a PR and I see that the file isn't updated to the best practice, I don't know whether to flag it or to not flag it. So that's the only reason I asked the question.
Yeah, I think the individual circumstances probably merit the question.
Okay. Okay.
I'd be happy to add that over when I have me on that ticket.
All right.
So similarly, I ran across Jasmine Clock, which has been really being nicely fleshed out in Jasmine version 2. It was introduced in 2.0, and originally all you could really do with it was tick, which allows you to trip over set timeouts. Obviously, we can do the same with $timeout.flush, so that wasn't all that useful. But what I did find useful, I linked out to the 2.0 docs, but if you change the 2.0 up in the URL to 2.2, they have added the ability to mock the base date. So when you're testing relative date functions, you can actually set your base time in your test. So you can then predictably say, you know, if I want to test 7 days in the past or something like that, it's always 7 days in the past off of the mocked date. So any instance after it's been invoked, after the base time has been set, any instance of new date that gets invoked within your code will be using this mocked base time. It's pretty amazing to be able to not have to worry about relative times and your expectations. You can actually say, you know, I know that this date is expected to be, you know, if you set a dummy date of December 1st, 2015 or whatever, and you're testing something that needs to look back 3 months in time, you can test and make sure that you're pulling in 3 months back from December 1st. It's predictable. It doesn't have to worry about, you know, any kind of daylight saving bumps or anything like that. Time will not affect your testing. It is now basically static, like you're taking a snapshot of time. Super useful when dealing with date stuff, which we've been doing a lot of with Journeys right now, so it's been very relevant. So just wanted to bring that to people's attention, and maybe it'll help if anybody else is working with dates testing. It certainly makes things easy. Cool. I don't know if there's any specific action item here, so I'm just being aware of it.
All right, looks like we have some comments on this. Just in here. No, that's we on it.
There he is.
Hey, Justin. We were just taking a look at the ESLint POC.
Oh, did we decide to do it or no?
We haven't started the discussion with this.
Yeah, we just saw you have some comments. We want to make sure you're here.
Okay.
So my screen doesn't scroll right now. Did the other day? Does that? Okay. So it looks like we agreed back in January 25th to do it. Looks like Jaime was supposed to kind of look into it, and now I guess it's stagnant. So
I know he did show kind of a POC at one point, and said it was possible, shared some of his findings. I can't remember if there were any specific limitations. There was the question whether we wanted to, if we were to move to ESLint, whether we wanted to move both the JSHint and JSCS definitions over to it. And so the mapping from the JSCS stuff was going to be maybe a little tricky. Since then, we've released the new front-end build where we're all using the same JSCS definition now, which I imagine will simplify this, make it kind of, we only have to do it once. We don't have to track down unique cases that may exist in one UI or analytics or anywhere else. I think there was a conversation of benefit of speed. I think right now it takes 30 seconds to run the gulp-lint task on THX. So I'd be curious to see what a benchmark would be with similar configuration in ESLint to see if it's if it can reduce that 30 seconds to something a little more better. So do we have a tech debt open to work on this, or is this?
No, he was going to do it outside, is what he said.
Yeah, so I think kind of the proof of concept was there. I mean, it can certainly work. I think if we want to follow up on this, we definitely need a tech debt and get it into a backlog and estimate it and all that good stuff.
My question is at this point, do we need ESLint? I mean, I know it's new and cool, and it consolidates different things into one.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding is there is a performance benefit, but if that's not the case, then I'm not necessarily sure it's worth the time.
Yeah.
I think first step would just be seeing if there's a performance benefit. If it really does, like if it reduced time of linting to like cut it in half, that would be good for everybody because it means you're going to save a lot of build time.
Yeah.
Over a long span of time.
Yeah. So I think we probably want to start with a spike to investigate potential of switching over to ESLint, comparing with our current build times, and then based on lint timing. And that seems to be, for me, that seems to be the primary factor. I don't know. I mean, yes, there are more configuration options with ESLint. We can get more detailed, but I think right now our current linting standards are pretty well fleshed out, and we haven't really had a good white space argument in a while. So I'm not sure we need necessarily the new bells and whistles that ESLint might bring to the table.
Yeah.
So if it doesn't give us much performance-wise, then
Yeah, I mean, if it saves 20 to 30%, and that's going to build up over time. We've got 6 or 7 projects that run that gulp-lint task between SDK, CRM, Analytics UI, One UI, Tag or Site UI. So a couple seconds here and there, compiled over several hundred builds, becomes meaningful.
All right, I'll volunteer to do the spike.
As well as you run your dev task. So dev task, I believe, is running lint. So that's another gain there too.
But that's all cached anyway. It's only linting the single file that you're on.
Okay, so not a huge advantage.
Yeah.
Okay.
Splitting hairs at that point.
Yeah.
So this came up in a PR the other day. I was using Lodash-REST on an array to pull all of the arguments off except the first one, which is what rest does. It's kind of the opposite of Lodash first, where first gives you just the first item of the array. In 3.0, rest gives you all of the rest of the array except the first one.
Wow.
Lodash did a great what the fuck to us, and in 3.0, tail is considered an alias. They say use rest. Tail is an alias for rest on arrays. But now in Lodash 4, rest is now something that works on a function. I didn't actually look. I can't remember off the top of my head what.
It's mimicking the rest operator that you get in ES6. So you can take, basically, instead of doing ... args, you now get, you have to just call it with a function if you're not using Babel or something.
Yeah. So so we really, for forward compatibility, we should really be using tail. So if you're used to using Lodash rest to pull everything off an array except the first item, then switch over to tail, because tail is now the standard in Lodash 4, and it's aliased in Lodash 3, so it's totally usable with the versions that we're on right now.
And you made a comment about first, you should really be using head, because the fact that they're moving to tail means that they're trying to go more functional. So you get the head and the tail. Head is the first item, tail is everything else.
Is that true, though? Or is head everything but the last item?
No, head is just the first item.
Right.
So head as opposed to what, first, you said?
Head array gets the first element of the array.
Yeah, they're moving more to traditional functional terms. So.
Yeah, it looks like in Lodash 4 they officially made first the alias of head.
Yep.
And it looks like head is available already, so that's good to know. So if you're using Lodash first, you should be using head now.
Okay. So. Oh yes, the old is undefined.
Yeah. So this one's an interesting one, and it's funny too because there's the module maintainer of Lodash at one point had a real scathing response on this ticket that I put a link to. Looks like that response has been removed in the meantime because it's gotten a lot of pressure where a lot of people are asking for an is undefined and a parallel is defined function. It gave in on the is undefined, so we do have is undefined in Lodash, but there is not yet an is defined. It did say that they're keeping an eye on the popularity of the request. You know, but I think his argument, it's not as strong as it was when I first ran across this, but the argument is it's very easy to check if something is undefined or defined. Because the type of with undefined is very explicit in JavaScript, and we have an undefined reserved word to compare directly against. And is undefined, I don't believe even covers null. So it really is specifically checking for undefined.
Oh, it doesn't do null?
I don't believe so, because that again, that would, if it does cover null, that would, for me, that adds to the confusion. And also seeing the not operator in front of is undefined is, for me, I can't. I sit there and stare at it. It takes me a minute to understand what not is undefined means. It's too many reversals of negatives because you've got the
I know the feeling.
yeah. It's kind of it's just one of those that, like, of course it makes sense, but it takes some time to just scan it. Whereas if it was just like if x equals undefined, it's like, oh, or if x does not equal undefined. There's something about that that's just easy to grok right away. It's about the same amount of characters. Type of is a little bit more, depending on if you're a type of fan or just mapping against undefined directly. But because of some of those arguments and kind of the discussion in Lodash and their resistance to add a parallel is defined, which would be not is undefined. I'm kind of recommending that we avoid using the is undefined method available in Lodash. I may be persuaded to leave it kind of to developers' preference, but it's certainly something that I don't find useful, and I'm cautious that is undefined may disappear. I would expect is undefined to disappear, being more likely than having an is defined appear in Lodash itself. But the future may totally change on that one. So just wanted to get people's thoughts on that and kind of put that out there.
Doesn't bother me.
I never know.
Yeah.
Nelson.
Didn't support. Oh, no.
Yeah, I need to double check that. If it covers null,
I put null into is undefined and keep it false.
yeah, the test is
You're specifically testing.
checks if the value is
So you-
undefined, because that would be even crazier to me. Yeah, they give the null example here.
Yeah.
That would be even crazier to me if is undefined covered undefined and null.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think if we use it as just is undefined, just to check if something is really undefined, then like I don't inherently have a problem with that. But once the not operator goes in front of it, it's just check. But it's just so easy to kind of type check undefined in JavaScript.
Fair enough. Right, no real action item on that one, just kind of knowledge exchange.
Yeah. I also think that on some teams that don't have the strict equals rules, that having an is undefined may help a little bit. But because we pretty strictly maintain the equals, because if you do double equals undefined, that's a whole different can of worms. So I think in some ways this method helps those teams with those problems. But we've pretty clearly set up the requirement of a triple equals.
Okay.
Before we move on to the show and tell, the follow-on one front-end build version control, it's up at the top.
Sorry?
Yeah, that one. Jake and I added the TDs and the spike. So I don't know if we want to pull this ticket back over or if we just want to close it out and say it's done for now. Because now that stuff will just get prioritized and we'll go through it at will. I don't know how we want to track it. I just don't think that Trello is the right place to track those things. So I think it should be completed.
It seems like it's completed.
And one other was the one about Flux documentation. I've done my initial draft for the Flux documentation of best practices, so if there's comments, I'm welcoming them.
Oh, sorry, this one.
Yeah. So there's the links inside of there.
Oh, nice.
They were there on the 22nd, and I just added a comment just asking for comments, and I did some further, little bit, just expanded out on the controller a little bit today, and then Just further comments or things you'd like to see? Yeah, there. Otherwise,
Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, nice job overall this last couple weeks getting some of this follow-on work done, checked off the list.
The follow-on work for Jasmine, since you guys already covered it, I didn't get the result, but do we really need to follow on? That seems like it's completed.
Sorry, this?
Yeah.
I was going to add it to the best practices.
Ah, okay. I didn't know what the task was. That's why.
I think also that nobody, like, is from the AMS, for example, that needs to be revisited.
Purpose price representative, no restrictions, I think. That one. Less boilerplate.
Oh, okay. So we need to make a spec dev for it. Okay.
I think some of these just are missing people, like assigned to do it. JT, I was saying that I'm not sure that we're really ready to do the show and tell. I haven't really prepared anything because I've been kind of mid stride on other work. So I was thinking we'll do the show and tell next time.
Okay.
It'll also ensure that we have enough time to cover everything. It'll probably take the majority of the hour to really kind of dig in and look at some different examples and stuff. Maybe not. It might be shorter than that.
Sounds good. Well, then we should clean up the board while we're all here and assign out things so that we can move these on.
Yep, I think that would be good.
Well, here's one from Amsterdam. One animate.
I'm still seeing bugs around this with one animate. I feel like the implementation that we have for one animate just is it's wrong, or ng animate is wrong. The area that I see it is when we get a new, when we don't have any data exports ready to go, and we add a new one, get a very strange kind of visual effect that's supposed to be a smooth, clean animation, but it kind of jumps into place. Once at least one item is on the list, I believe the animation is working, but I've seen a couple other scenarios where this is a little strange.
So do we have like a problem right now? It sounds like the task of this is to write up a problem, a bug fix task in Jira and get it up there.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's a bigger issue than that. I feel like we created this one animate directive to kind of bridge the gap between, I don't know, between one and ng animate, and I'm just wondering if that layer of is necessary.
Actually, so we created one animate because we introduced ng animate only in data export, I think, and was having side effects on all the other parts of the product. So, in an attempt to just make it work only on one export, we will toggle it on using this one animate. So if an element had one animate directive, it will make use of the ng animate. So that was the main purpose of the directive.
It sounds like a task for this. Maybe you two should sync up and see what you're seeing, and then if there's an issue that you guys can identify, write up a bug for it. Because I don't know anything about the animate thing breaking, so.
Yeah, I'd forgotten that ng animate had a handful of side effects, and that we were containing it. Makes sense.
All right, so we want to basically, so it's going to be is it only on the data export page entirely now?
I think that's maybe the only implementation of one animate. We
Okay.
may have put a one animate a couple places in journeys. I can't remember.
All right. Well, let's take a look.
And the bug itself may also be related to 1.4.7, because I know NGAnimate parallels the Angular versions.
Okay. Who feels most comfortable taking a look at that page? So you're saying it just jumps when you hit the download button, basically, or not the download when you hit the export button?
Yeah, the first item just kind of comes into play a little strangely. It's just awkward.
Okay.
It's kind of a minor issue, but it's one of those just kind of visual distractions that isn't all that nice. And I mean, in this scenario, it may be moot just because data export is potentially going to be going away. But it would be at least a use case to see if OneAnimate has some buried bug in there, or if it's a versioning issue with Engine.
Adrian, are you pretty familiar with the NGAnimate then?
Yeah, I created it.
All right. You want to take a look at it on the data export page?
Sure.
All right. This, I remember we talked about introducing the beginning of a release, and I think that was PC, PC 12, I think.
Yeah.
Probably
missed the time window for PC 13.
Yeah.
But I don't know, if we upgrade within the 1.4, it could be relatively
small.
So maybe we want to have a spike that gives us a proof of concept to get to 4.11 now.
So this is just, what are these action items then?
The latest 4 release was 1.49.
No.
Oh, it's still the same one?
Yeah, they stopped there and went to 5 for the minor release.
If you assume move to NPM overpower.
Yeah, these seem like three different things.
Well, it started with this, and I remember then we were like, well, we might as well update all our some of our build and dependency packages.
That was a 1.4.12. Released June 15th.
That's weird.
All right, so it seems like, well, on this thing, so it seems like we have a couple things coming out of here. We want a TechDet. Is it a TechDet or is it a spike to see if it works?
Probably a spike at first, just to see if there's any aggressively breaking changes. And if there's not, then let's write up TechDet and get it in place during PC 13.
Okay. Seeing that this tag has action items, I feel like we should have action items on the rest.
Yeah, I mean, I can.
I don't know how that works. Add an item. Oh, interesting.
Also, with that second item, the create POC to move NPM over Bower, we're now the build is now fully set up to be able to support third-party libraries or vendor libraries from NPM. So we may want to do that all of those at once. That's kind of a separate, it's a little off topic, but
Okay.
Not just specifically for Angular, but everything, and reduce the Bower cycle completely. Although I think there are a few things that Bower gives us that we can't really reproduce in NPM. Bower can pull from GitHub, so if there's not an NPM module.
Update release process to ensure we update packages at the beginning of the release. What does that mean?
Yeah, I'm not sure if we even were able to do that, but I mean that was what we kind of agreed upon. We said, all right, well, let's at every release cycle ends, we'll jump into updating all the packages. But the problem with that is, as a release cycle ends, you jump into patches, and then by the time we finish patches, we're already halfway through the next release.
Yeah.
Okay. So should we strike that then, or is that like
Well,
an?
I mean, that's still the best time. Like, if we want to upgrade to 1.5, that's still the best time to do it. It'll be the longest time in play and the furthest away from the next release.
Yeah, but what I'm getting at is, on this card, is there an action item to take away from it, or is it just something that we inherently do during release cycle? Because if there's not an action item, let's remove it.
I mean,
Yeah, I don't know what the release process, how documented all that is.
Yeah.
To be able to add a step like this in there.
I don't think there's a written like you do X, Y, and Z. I mean, well, actually, you know, there may be, but if there is a release process kind of write up, it's going to be from Walt's perspective of how do I release something, not necessarily, you know, what to do in the beginning.
So we can probably remove that first action item then.
Oops.
And the POC, I think we can remove that. Seems like a separate type thing.
Yeah.
That's something else.
Story package.
Yeah, I think we decided let's start with this release,
We
right?
were digging in with the. I feel like changing all of the libraries all at once is not a good idea. It seems like if we're going to upgrade like select 2, we should have a specific tech debt, upgrade select 2, run regression, everything looks good, ship it.
Yeah.
And then if we're going to go ahead and upgrade tipped or anything else, you know, one piece at a time. I'm not sure updating all of the out-of-date packages at the same time is wise.
That's a lot of code sharing and a lot of regression.
Yeah, no, I get that.
No, so I'm agreeing with you.
Well, my name's on this one, so I'll add the spike and take a look, and then I'll wait on creating tech debt, obviously, until take a look at the spike. Top, sorry, got a name. What's the last time I did this?
Sorry, which ticket is
Sorry, this is determined solution for making one util and one constant available unit tests.
Oh.
I thought we did this. We did this.
I think we may have inadvertently fixed this without realizing there was already a conversation up here. So pulling in THX, I think I saw a tech debt, or there's a pull request in progress now where this was introduced, but really the POMs can just pull in those bits and then we can just use those directly. And so constants and utils and actually all the services coming from one are available, so they don't have to be mocked.
Sorry. Update the Yeoman. All right, sitting on there for a bit.
Yeah, so this one I've been taking a look at a little bit more recently, and I think there's still value in keeping the generators, but we'll probably have to kind of go through and really revamp the templates in there pretty much from the ground up. So I've been trying to find some time to set aside to do this, but haven't been able to do so yet. But
Well,
when you say set aside time to actually do it, or to actually set up or to investigate it?
to actually do it.
Okay. Well, why don't you? If we're all in agreement we're still going to do it. Let's create a tech debt And that way, that's kind of, this ticket's kind of done, right? We'll at least have a tech debt and some information. It'll be prioritized, and then whoever can jump on it can jump on it.
Okie dokie.
I think in some ways this ticket might relate to one of the other ones that we have up about module loading pattern with respect to components and actions. A lot of boilerplate. It's constantly redefined. Create a tech debt to create a reusable abstraction. I think a lot of that reusable abstraction is, I mean, this is directly linked to some of the work that's going to be done in the Omen generator, because the idea is we should be able to generate a directive or a module or whatever that already has some of these issues kind of solved in place. So this is probably parallel work or something, or considered at the same time. I know this came out of John's work with the directive module that he wrote recently, which was kind of a guinea pig test of using directives as modules, using our kind of create edit pattern that's still in place. So there's a lot of moving parts here, and I'm not sure how to necessarily break it down. But if we're going to have Yeoman generators, and then we're going to do this, we're going to make our generators obsolete pretty much instantly. So it seems like we want to make this as a pre-requirement of some sort, or they're part of the same task.
Same task.
Same task?
Because if you're going to update the Yeoman generators, update them to do all this too.
All right, but I mean, so it's let's identify how we feel it should behave and create a tech debt to create a reusable abstraction for that behavior. I mean, is part of the, do we really need a spike really before the tech debt to discuss this further?
Yeah, I would say this would be kind of a planning phase. So spike to plan this out, at least draw up a roadmap.
Yeah.
Of what they're supposed to look like, and then put it into place.
Yeah. All right. So Jake, as part of that tech debt, have it depend upon, I guess, a spike, where basically we can discuss how we can reuse some of this code.
Okay.
And that spike will have to be, obviously, more than one person. You can't have one person just kind of divvy this out. We're going to have a couple people come together on the spike. It might just be one long meeting. It might be a couple meetings, but definitely don't want to just leave it to one person because it's not fair.
And I've already created a tech debt for the updating of the Yeoman generator, so I can link. I'll drop that into a comment on the ticket here. So I'll just create the spike and then link the two.
Yeah. So cool. That'll be perfect. Thank you. All right. This is a best practice. I think I might have done this, but I'll throw my name on this just to, maybe I forgot to put it into done. I believe I did this stuff. Yeah. I think I got rid of it, but I'll just double check. And then sections come, let's see, we can go rather than control.
Yeah, I think we were thinking about doing this all in one.
Can't that be part of the Yeoman update?
Yeah.
Well, this is I think that's important as part of the Yeoman update, but this is also going back and touching all of the files that currently exist, I think was the proposal.
Oh, yeah, yep.
It's just, and it should just be a pull request of removing comments. And I don't think we would need regression as long as the builds are green.
If you want, I can take this one. Okay. I can just do a regex and wipe it all out.
Thank you. I'll let you pull it over when you create the tech guide. Is that okay? Or do you just want me to pull it?
That's fine. No,
Okay.
yeah. I'll create the TD and then like the code changes.
Okay. All right, awesome. Well, that's good. So everyone's got their name on this stuff. Like I said, I'm gonna not pull things over. So Jake, even though you probably, well, I guess if you've done it, you just want me to pull both those over?
I'll create the spike first, and then I'll go in and move it over. Don't worry about it.
All right, appreciate it. Okay. We have 12 minutes. Anybody just want anything off the cuff? Came up this week or the last 2 weeks?
I had one question.
Sure.
I was curious, where did the manifest JSON files get consumed? I was trying to look through the code, and the reason I bring it up is because I'm in one UI right now, and I want to start using the new translations. So basically, what I read from the documentation was you create a manifest, or you add it to the manifest JSON for each of the modules, and then be able to then have that consumed and make it become available.
Yep.
I look at one UI, I don't see really any manifest JSON files there.
Right, because there are no one UI modules.
Exactly.
It's basically a collection of services and whatnot.
Yep.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So yeah, I mean the manifest digests are all happening within within the module. There is a one UI module that is the module component or something like that. Maybe it's a directive. Like, yeah, it's called like one module.
Yeah. So
and in there, there is all the manifest parsing. It's not all that clear. It's kind of like wading through a swamp of weeds, but it is in there. But I don't think that'll necessarily help if we want to be able to make translation strings available to the one services or different parts of one UI.
Yeah.
So what we probably should do is anything that one needs to have available instantly, we should just make those available during the bootstrap process in the one.config. That's defined in app.js.
Okay.
And so, I mean, that's just off the top of my head. I'm not necessarily sure that's the best way to go. What that would mean is that then any module that wants to use those strings would not have to include anything in their manifest to use those strings. It's only if they want to include additional partials. So there is a little bit of argument of, how much do we want to necessarily load? Partial loader really is, just load what you need. So the first request, for example, will only basically give you the welcome screen stuff. So maybe, do you have a specific use case of where you want to use translation strings?
Yeah, so right now it's just I'm doing the rebranding of the navigation system.
Yep.
So I have all the different strings that are for that navigation system. I was trying to figure out where was the right place to put those.
I'm not all that familiar with the navigation. Is that loaded through a module at all?
So they have these they have these different JSON files that end up getting loaded onto the page.
It's features JSON.
And then the features JSON, which then also contains strings that can then be applied as literals for the page itself. And there's also some hard-coded strings that are in the templates for cases that aren't coming out as a configuration files that specify the different menu items. So it's a mixed bag.
Okay.
But so basically we have strings coming from a JSON file, and we have strings coming from a template.
Yeah, let's take a look at that. Yeah, I'm not entirely convinced we necessarily want to bootstrap those in, but that may be ultimately the easiest way to go. And I'm not sure we can really use the module loader, so we may just, there is the ability to use the template partial loader directly to call, to pull in things. It then becomes a little asynchronous for you, which is the downside of it. Because right now, because the module loader is already asynchronous, we're able to asynchronously load the partial while we're loading the module, and not bootstrap the module until the partial and the module files have all been loaded. Yeah. And then everything can be synchronously done. So we can use that translated. But yeah, let's explore that more.
Okay,
I'd be curious to see, because I don't know the navigation enough to, just off the top of my head, I don't have a good solution.
so cool. Excellent.
All right. I guess it's just about time, unless anyone else has some quick comments. All right. Everyone have a good day. Appreciate it.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.